For over 100 years, Balmoral Castle had been more than stone and landscape. It was the theater where the monarchy revealed its hidden heart, moments of joy, grief, and secrets whispered behind closed doors. But today, something different lingered in the Highland air. Tension intertwined with pride as Prince Edward and Sophie, Countess of Wessex, arrived at the Queen's cherished Scottish sanctuary, a place now destined to witness a defining moment in royal history, their first official state duty at Balmoral. Before we unravel the full meaning of this unprecedented move, make sure to subscribe. Every detail of this royal drama matters. Balmoral had always carried a weight far beyond its imposing towers or rolling heather-clad hills. It was a crucible of truth where monarchs confronted their private storms. The late Queen had often called it the mirror of the monarchy, a place where the veneer fell away, revealing the raw, unfiltered reality of power. Now, with King Charles battling health challenges, Balmoral stood as a silent witness to a transition no one dared name aloud. Edward and Sophie did not come as visitors. They came as the embodiment of the crown itself. The moment their car approached, the very air seemed to tighten, as if the castle itself recognized the gravity of what was unfolding. For Edward, the terrain was unfamiliar. All his life, he had been the shadowed Windsor, eclipsed by louder voices, bolder headlines, and more controversial personalities. But stepping onto Balmoral's historic grounds, a shift stirred within him. Sophie, beside him, exuded a quiet yet formidable authority. Her calm was forged not from title, but from navigating the labyrinth of royal life, absorbing its pressures without letting them break her composure. Yet beneath that serene exterior simmered a subtle awareness. Every glance, every hush in the corridors spoke of consequences far beyond ceremony. The whispers of the palace preceded them, questions about the king's health, succession, and the symbolic choice of Edward and Sophie, known for humility, to carry the monarchy's authority. Was it a gesture of trust or a deliberate test? Courtiers exchanged furtive looks, caught between awe and apprehension. Edward felt it too. The weight of invisible scrutiny, each movement amplified against centuries of history. Still, fear gave way to resolve. This was not ambition, but inheritance. Continuity. Duty embodied in quiet devotion. Standing before Balmoral's gates, Edward recalled his late mother's words, echoing through memory, "Loyalty is not loud. It is lasting." In that instant, those words crystallized into a silent vow. Sophie noticed, offering a fleeting, knowing glance, the kind that carried entire conversations without uttering a word. Together, they bore the expectations of an institution, but also the lineage of a monarchy forged through resilience, reform, and unyielding grace. Outside, the church bells tolled, rolling across the highlands, heralding a moment that none could yet define. Balmoral had witnessed coronations, farewells, births, and deaths. Yet this was quieter, subtler, the birth of loyalty in its most potent, transformative form. As Highland winds swept through the halls, Edward and Sophie's entrance signaled more than duty. It marked the beginning of an unspoken reckoning. Behind these walls, King Charles had been crafting a fragile strategy to preserve the monarchy, but one with consequences few could foresee. To the public, Edward and Sophie's role seemed ceremonial, graceful, but insiders knew better. Balmoral was chosen deliberately, to measure allegiance, to expose ambition, to subtly reshape influence within the family. The king's retreat under the pretense of convalescence had a hidden purpose. From seclusion, he observed every gesture, decoding loyalty, discerning self-interest, and quietly noting fractures in his inner circle. Years of disappointment had honed caution into suspicion. The crown had become a chessboard, and the pieces, even family, were potential threats. It wasn't the young generation that unnerved him most, but the quiet ambitions close to the throne. Camilla's family, though related by marriage, had extended their influence in ways Charles could no longer ignore. The risk of their prominence eclipsing the bloodline he vowed to protect demanded action. Hence his unprecedented choice. Edward steady and unobtrusive, and Sophie poised and emotionally astute. To the public, the selection appeared traditional. Beneath the gilded surface, it was a test shrouded in diplomacy. Edward, unwavering and scandal-free, embodied stability disguised as ritual. Sophie became the bridge, capable of tempering conflict without overtly intervening. Behind closed doors, a private dialogue unfolded among Charles, Anne, and Sophie. The king's words, measured and layered, conveyed urgency. And saw clarity. Sophie listened intently. Charles revealed the unspoken truth: the monarchy could not endure another fracture in loyalty. Every action, no matter how ceremonial, would carry immense consequence. Balmoral, far from a simple visit, had become the stage for a silent trial, a proving ground for the crown's most delicate future. It was a crucible. Charles watched closely, testing whether Edward and Sophie would act with integrity when no one was looking, whether they would serve the monarchy itself or the illusion of it. To them, this assignment was both honor and burden, a silent recognition that the king was maneuvering behind a veil of secrecy. This was no simple delegation. It was succession politics cloaked in elegance, a covert rehearsal for an era yet to arrive. As the couple prepared to carry the crown's emblem through Balmoral's echoing halls, neither fully grasped the magnitude of the stage upon which they stood. Within those ancient walls, history was poised to pivot. What began as duty would morph into a delicate contest of loyalty and legacy. Edward moved with formal precision, mastering the choreography of statecraft, while Sophie quietly commanded the soul of Balmoral. Staff described her presence as a calm sweeping through a stormed palace. Yet beneath her soft-spoken grace, a keen awareness simmered. She understood the subtle power she wielded, the rare chance to redefine what it meant to be a royal consort. For the first time, Sophie's light did not bend behind another. Not Camilla's, not Catherine's. From the moment she stepped onto the grounds, there was a disarming authenticity in her demeanor. She greeted everyone, senior officials, long-serving attendants, with warmth that felt natural, unpracticed, profoundly human. Those who had served the late queen whispered that Sophie carried the same quiet authority, the same understated gravitas that once radiated from Elizabeth herself. It was respect, not hierarchy, that followed her. For a palace long accustomed to intrigue and rivalry, her presence was a breath of clarity, a subtle reminder that dignity could lead without demanding obedience. In private meetings with Scottish dignitaries, Sophie's mastery was undeniable. She listened with patience, spoke with measured precision. Observers noted not just her words, but the aura in which they landed, empathy wrapped around authority, insight tempered by grace. Her understanding of national identity, her intuition in diplomacy, recalled the late queen's rare ability to soothe without surrendering influence. Her courtesy, once underestimated, revealed itself as strategic brilliance, a quiet, calculated empathy that commanded respect without confrontation. As days passed, admiration for Sophie rippled beyond Balmoral's walls. The press began to craft narratives, hailing her as the embodiment of the Windsor spirit. Comparisons to Queen Elizabeth in her early reign emerged, the restraint, the quiet strength, the unshakable resolve beneath composed exterior. In a monarchy bracing for uncertainty, Sophie became a symbol of reassurance. Stability without pride, modernity without upheaval. Simple fascination soon shifted to speculation. Was Sophie poised to redefine the royal hierarchy? Headlines whispered future of the monarchy beside her name, fanning intrigue that the palace could not ignore. The silence from official channels only stoked curiosity. Some insiders believe Charles orchestrated this deliberately, a social experiment testing how the public would embrace a new model of royalty, one anchored in composure, not charisma or controversy. Others thought Sophie's rise was accidental, the result of mastery through subtlety. But admiration in royal circles carries a cost. Camilla, observing from afar, sensed the shift immediately. Decades of cultivating legitimacy suddenly felt threatened by the effortless poise of another woman. Even polite exchanges between Clarence House and Balmoral carried undercurrents of tension, a delicate war of perception. For Sophie, this was not ambition in disguise. It was duty performed with such perfection it seemed destined. Every kind word, every graceful gesture, every headline praising her subtly elevated her status, a pedestal history had not prepared. Power had always favored visibility. Sophie had risen precisely by avoiding it. As whispers of respect became murmurs of possibility, Balmoral's walls seemed to hum with a question long unspoken. Was Sophie, not Camilla, the incarnation of the queen the public had yearned for? But with recognition came danger. As Balmoral murmured her name in the same breath as queen material, rivalries sharpened. When reports reached Camilla that staff referred to Sophie as the people's comfort, simmering fury took root. She had fought tirelessly for acceptance, only to witness someone once peripheral eclipse her influence. To the public, she remained composed, dutiful beside the king. But those closest noticed the tension, clipped tones, distant gazes, restrained irritation whenever Sophie was mentioned. Years of navigating scrutiny, of safeguarding the monarchy's image, suddenly felt undermined by a woman whose charm seemed effortless. Every flattering headline about Sophie became a reminder. Public affection is fleeting, royal favor even more so. Tensions between Balmoral and Clarence House grew palpable. Staff noticed delays, filtered approvals, indirect communication. At the center of it all lay an emotion as old as monarchy itself: envy. Camilla, for the first time since her coronation, questioned her place not with the public, but with Charles. The king himself was caught in a delicate bind, defending his wife, yet unable to ignore the warmth Sophie had reignited in the hearts of the people. Camilla's unease deepened with every passing day. It wasn't just power at stake, it was belonging. For years, Camilla had fought to be recognized as part of the royal narrative, not merely the woman who had disrupted it. Yet now, another woman quietly occupied the center she had long sought. Sophie had become what Camilla had yearned to be: trusted, admired, uncontroversial. And no matter how she denied it, that truth cut deeper than any scandal ever could. As the tension radiated from Scotland to London, Balmoral's serene facade began to fracture. The once harmonious circle of royals was bracing for a confrontation no one anticipated. Edward had waited his whole life to step out of obscurity, yet with newfound influence came peril. Daily letters from the king arrived, their careful handwriting carrying subtle commands and warnings. "Sir, with discretion," one read, "the future unfolds quietly." The words haunted Edward, forcing him to wonder if his role was truly trusted or merely observed. Late-night counsel came from Princess, and the one who could understand the weight he now bore. Their conversations, tinged with nostalgia and concern, drifted back to their mother, her grace, her resilience, her refusal to let duty erode her humanity, and reminded him, lead without ego, act without applause, preserve her promise, not the throne. Those words ignited a new sense of purpose in Edward, noble yet unsettling. Days at Balmoral revealed both clarity and complication. Edward navigated tense exchanges between palace officials and Scottish ministers who bristled at the crown's measured approach. A quiet dispute simmered beneath the surface, threatening to stain the king's carefully crafted image of unity. Edward intervened, calmly mediating before tensions escalated into scandal. Victory came silently, unseen by the public, but deeply felt within the castle walls. For the first time, he wasn't simply a representative, he was a guide, shaping the monarchy in real time. Yet even as he earned respect, doubt lingered. The institution had changed. No longer ceremonial and distant, it now relied on perception, presence, and constant vigilance. Loyalty, once Edward's shield, was becoming a limitation. The crown demanded more than devotion. It required voices capable of steadfast judgment without abandoning tradition. He reflected on his father, the Duke of Edinburgh, embodiment of quiet strength. Following in his footsteps meant more than restraint. It meant knowing when to act decisively for the crown's sake. And for the first time, Edward felt a strange stir of ambition, not for himself, but for the legacy of duty he now represented. Then came the letter from Charles. No royal seal, only the king's unsteady signature. Edward's face reportedly went pale as he read it. It wasn't congratulations, it was confession. Charles admitted he could no longer trust certain senior royals. Balmoral had been the test. Edward and Sophie had passed. They were to assume a discreet yet powerful role, bridging monarchy and government, a position demanding unyielding integrity. The letter was not fraternal counsel. It was the voice of a man cornered by crown and bloodline alike. Trust had eroded at the heart of the family, and the king was reclaiming it where loyalty had not been for sale. Names were unspoken, but Edward sensed them all. Those who blurred duty with ambition, who treated inheritance as entitlement. For long moments, he simply stared at the ink confession, pulse echoing with disbelief. Why us? He had lived in the shadows, overlooked, supporting louder narratives. Yet now the survival of the monarchy rested on his steadiness. Sophie read alongside him, expression unreadable at first. Then, seeing his hesitation, she spoke with her usual quiet authority, because you never asked for it. Not reassurance, truth. Their restraint, their refusal to chase influence, had become their greatest strength. Charles recognized it as purity of intent. Within the letter, darker hints lurked, cryptic warnings about Camilla's extended family and their growing sway over royal affairs. Balmoral had been more than a mission. It had been a controlled experiment. Edward and Sophie had passed where others had faltered. Anne's response, when discreetly informed, was telling. Balmoral was the final test. No surprise, only recognition. Every assignment, every tension, every choice had led to this formation of a new inner circle, one bound by character, not title. The weight settled heavily. Pride mingled with unease. This wasn't conventional power. It was responsibility wrapped in trust. They were now guardians of the monarchy's moral compass, standing between crown and political machinery. Invisible, unsung, yet pivotal. Sophie folded the letter with deliberate care. Eyes met Edward's. Words were unnecessary. Both understood their lives had shifted into a dangerous, unseen chapter. The king's faith was exclusive and perilous. Then, the unthinkable, Balmoral's quiet walls were breached. An unexpected visitor, a journalist notorious for uncovering royal secrets, appeared at the estate gates. Claims of a power shift had preceded him. Edward immediately tightened security. Sophie maintained calm, but urgency ran beneath her composed surface. The king's private letter, the blueprint of trust and loyalty, was now at risk. Weeks of confidentiality had crumbled. Trust, not walls, had been violated. Every aide professed ignorance. Lines of communication were scrutinized, but the leak had already traveled faster than containment could manage. Sophie, ever the strategist, urged measured action. Panic would fuel exposure. Perception could still be steered if handled swiftly and discreetly. Yet even she felt the fragility of Balmoral's ancient authority. Every whisper risked becoming a headline. Trust unraveled thread by thread. Rumors swirled. Discontented staff? Or, more dangerously, Clarence House? The suggestion alone thickened the air with silent hostility. If true, it wasn't a slip, it was sabotage. The journalist's arrival was no accident. Someone inside had spoken, and the timing could not have been worse. He hadn't come seeking truth. He had come armed with it. The realization sent a chill through Edward's very core. By dawn, whispers had already begun circulating in the press, speculative, sensational, yet dangerously close to the truth, that the king had privately chosen successors beyond the expected line, naming Edward and Sophie as custodians of a new era of trust. Denial was impossible. In the public eye, silence alone had become confession. For Edward, it was a nightmare disguised as honor. What had been a quiet, sacred duty was now twisted into scandal. His loyalty, once pure, was under scrutiny. The crown's most delicate secret had been unleashed, debated on morning shows, and dissected in column inches. Every whisper threatened to turn faith into suspicion. Every headline could warp duty into accusation. And yet, amid chaos, a clarity emerged. He could no longer hide behind modesty. The monarchy had thrust him into a war fought not with armies, but with words, with shadows. Sophie stood unwavering at his side, her voice a steady reminder of purpose. Together, they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Dawn broke over the highlands, and the newspapers roared with headlines that could no longer be contained. The new royal faces of the future. For the public, hope. For Camilla, humiliation. Praise poured in for Edward and Sophie's composure and grace. Camilla, reportedly shaken, withdrew from engagements, citing fatigue. Behind the palace doors, the monarchy was being rewritten, not by decree, but by perception. Across the nation, commentators hailed the couple as the embodiment of quiet dignity, a living reflection of the late queen's enduring values. Their humility, restraint, and empathy rekindled faith in the crown's moral compass. Columns compared Sophie's empathetic poise to Elizabeth's iconic elegance, Edward's quiet authority to Philip's fortitude. The ghosts of royal greatness seemed to stir through them. International media declared them stabilizers of the monarchy, heralding their ability to inspire without spectacle, to unify without division. In a world exhausted by scandal and ego, Edward and Sophie offered a rare antidote, the power of duty executed quietly, gracefully. They became the emotional anchors of a palace long overshadowed by rivalry. But behind the applause, unease lingered. King Charles observed the public's adoration with a mix of pride and sorrow. Edward's loyalty had never wavered, yet seeing the people rally behind his brother stirred a painful truth. His own reign might never inspire such pure admiration. Every compliment directed at Edward and Sophie was a subtle reminder of the crown's shifting balance. Camilla felt it acutely. Once secure in her role, she now faced isolation. Invitations dwindled, appearances grew scarce, every outing shadowed by comparison. Where Sophie was hailed as Grace Reborn, Camilla seemed reluctantly tethered to the throne. Meanwhile, Catherine quietly stepped forward, extending a subtle olive branch to Sophie, a gesture both courteous and strategic. Publicly, she aligned herself with the wave of admiration surrounding Edward and Sophie, forging a new trio of trust that was modern, stabilizing, and quietly unthreatening. The king could not ignore this alliance. Behind the scenes, Charles reshuffled responsibilities. His declining health and relentless scrutiny forced him to confront the future sooner than anticipated. Documents were drafted, roles reassigned, all under the guise of modernization. The truth was simpler yet profound. Edward and Sophie were no longer secondary figures. Balmoral had changed everything. Still, the swift ascent brought tension. Every surge of popularity carries a price, whispered the palace loyalists. Edward and Sophie had not sought the spotlight, yet they now stood at the eye of a storm that was far from over. And looming above it all, one final move from King Charles would cement their fate and reshape the monarchy forever. Weeks later, the announcement arrived. Edward and Sophie were formally appointed guardians of the royal household, a title unseen since the 1800s. Symbolic, personal, powerful. Balmoral had not been a momentary gesture. It was the start of a quiet revolution. With Charles's health waning, the public recognized this as the true passing of the torch. No grand ceremony, no broadcast, only a written statement from Buckingham Palace carrying seismic weight. In acknowledgement of their steadfast loyalty, their Royal Highnesses, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, would henceforth serve as guardians of the royal household. The words were both a title and a confession. Trust and stability had found a new home. Across Britain, admiration surged. A nation fatigued by scandal now found solace in integrity. Outside Windsor, crowds waved flags not in celebration but in reverence. Media celebrated a restored monarchy, one guided by restraint, character, and moral clarity. Edward and Sophie had become the emotional anchor of a dynasty teetering on uncertainty. For Edward, the honor came hand in hand with burden. Leadership now measured not in rank, but in restraint. His first public statement was humble yet piercingly sincere. "We will continue to honor Her Majesty's promise to serve, not rule, to guide, not command." Generations listened, reminded that duty without expectation carries unmatched authority. Sophie, standing beside him, embodied the heart of this transformation. At Balmoral, her speech trembled with meaning, not victory but duty. Tears welled as she whispered, "We will protect what she built, not with crowns or commands, but with grace." It was the most human moment the monarchy had shared in years, reverberating across the nation. King Charles watched quietly, a complex mix of pride and relief washing over him. His final message to the public was succinct but profound: gratitude for renewed faith, and the reminder that loyalty is earned, not inherited. Balmoral's test of trust had become the cornerstone of his legacy. Even as health declined, he found solace in knowing the monarchy's future was now anchored in integrity, not illusion. Behind the scenes, another story quietly unfolded. Lady Louise, Edward and Sophie's daughter, observed with awe. Her poise, attentiveness, and natural composure hinted at the next generation of the Windsor line, bridging old and new. For now, she remained in the shadows, but the symbolism was clear. The future had arrived, patiently waiting. And so Balmoral's transformation closed not as an ending, but as the quiet moment when the crown redefined itself from within, through loyalty, trust, and unshakable grace. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.